What we're going to be doing in this lesson is creating what's called a marginal relative frequency distribution. It's going to look a lot like this frequency distribution. However, we're going to change to percents instead of just the frequency or the count. So before we begin, go ahead and pause the video and read this whole section first. So you want to make sure that you understand what the frequency table is about, and then you also want to make sure you understand what is a relative frequency distribution and a marginal relative frequency distribution. So take a minute to pause the video and read the section before we move on. All right, so let's go ahead and make our marginal relative frequency distribution. So the instructions are to construct a marginal relative frequency distribution of the data, and we're talking about this data here in this table. And we're being asked to represent each ratio as a percent. So let's go ahead and get started. What we're going to be doing is looking at each of the cells. So for the students that are 18 years or older, the students that like sports, if we look at our data, there were 20 out of 280. So for that first cell, I'm going to do 20 divided by 280. And I need to change this to a percent. So with a calculator, 20 divided by 280. If I do 20 divided by 280, I'm going to get 0.0714. And we need to change this to a percent. So to change to a percent, we just move 2 decimal places to the right. So that'd be 7.1%. And we'll just continue this process for all of our students age 18 and under. So for the movies, it was 30 out of 280. And once again, just use your calculator. 30 divided by 280 is 0.1071. And if I move 2 spaces to the right, that's going to be 10.7%. And then for reading, 22 out of 280, use your calculator, and you would end up with 0.0785. And if we move our decimal 2 places to the right, we'll get 7.85%. But I'm going to just keep it to 1 decimal place, so I'm going to round it to 7.9%. And then for walking, we have 8 out of 280. So let's change that. 8 divided by 280 is 0.0285. So we'll move 2 places to the right to get our percent. And then just focus on 1 decimal place, so that I would round that to 2.9%. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add this entire row. So we're going to add all of these together, and we'll end up with a total for this row, which is 28.6%. And then you're just going to repeat this process for adults age 19 through 50. So you'll just be looking at the data here. So this would be 10 out of 180. 10 out of 280 converted to a percent, and then 32 out of 280 converted to a percent, and 25 out of 280 converted to a percent, 43 out of 280 converted to a percent. So just repeat this process, except you're just using these values for the 19 to 50-year-olds instead. And I'm just going to continuously do that too. So 10 divided by 280 is 0.0357. So I can round that to 3.6%. And then if I do 32 divided by 280, that's 0.1142. So I can round that to 11.4%. 25 out of 280 would be 0.0892 or 8.9%. And then keep working. For walking, we've got 43 out of 280, 0.1535, so I could round that to 15.4%. And then once I, again, add all of these to get this total. So if I have 15.4 plus 8.9 plus 11.4 plus 3.6, we get 39.3 is the total for that row. And then finally, let's do our adults over 50. So I'm going to be using 5, 20, 35, and 30. 5 out of 280 is 1.8%. And then I do 20 out of 280. That's 7.1%. And I'm just following this process here. I'm just using these values out of 280 instead because I'm working on adults 50 and over. So for reading, that's 35 out of 280. That's 12.5%. And then last is 30 out of 180 because that's our walking. So 30 out of 280. I keep saying 180, I'm sorry. So that's going to be 10.7%. And then I'll add these to get this total. 10.7 plus 12.5 plus 7.1 plus 1.8 is 32.1. Okay, so then we have to do our final totals. So let's add up this all these totals right here in order to get this bottom cell. So we'll do 28.6 plus 39.3 plus 32.1, and that's 100. And then we also need to add all of these columns. So 2.9 plus 15.4 plus 10.7 is 29. We'll add this column. 7.9 plus 8.9 plus 12.5 is 29.3. And we'll add this column. 10.7, 11.4, 7.1 is 29.2. And this last column, 7.1 plus 3.6 plus 1.8 is 12.5. And then you should check that this row also adds up to 100 here. So if I add these, it should equal 100. So let's check. 12.5 plus 29.2 plus 29.3 plus 29, it equals 100. So when you're done, you want to make sure that this the totals here equal 100, and you also want to make sure that the totals of each of these columns, when you add them together, they also equal 100. So this is your relative frequency distribution, which is just, instead of numbers or frequencies, it's just represented as percents instead. And we will then move on to making a histogram out of this information in the next video.